This is episode 8 of the Gene Keys Spheres series, and today we are going to talk about the SQ. My name is Jay Cohen, and I'm here to remind you of the power of living a heart-led life and maintaining equanimity when the world seems to be going through an incredibly difficult transition. So your SQ, you've probably heard of your IQ before, your intellectual quotient, your brain, your thinking, and you may have heard of your EQ before, your emotional quotient, or your ability to engage in relationship with another, to hear and to be heard. Your SQ is your spiritual quotient. So this is your connectedness to your soul, or another way to think about this is to your heart. So if you look at a Gene Keys profile, a hologenetic profile, and you lay it over a human body, what you'll see is that the SQ sits right over the heart. And that's what it represents. It represents the opening of your spiritual heart. Now, I want to clarify, because oftentimes people hear about opening their heart and they think about love. And that is true. This is about love, but it's not about human love. Although it is a component, this is the love that is the connective tissue of the universe, the love of God, if you will. And I think the Greeks did a really great job of capturing what I mean when I say the word love here. They had a word called agape. And agape is different than eros, for example, a word you might be familiar with, which is the love of a partner, right? Like a sexual love. And then we've got philos, which is a friendship-based love. Agape is this knowing that you are supported, that you are safe. It is unconditional. It's always there, and it is our default state. The problem is that we take on all of this conditioning over our childhood, and we build up a lot of evidence that what I just said is not true. In fact, we build up a lot of evidence to prove that the opposite is true. But what we start to realize, given enough time, is that all of the difficult things that have happened to us are to help us to see this love and to help us to remember on a deep level that there is something inside of us, something buried, this impulse that is so pure and so true. And it is taking such immense energy to keep it locked in. And it's the reason that we often spiral and circle around without ever being able to change or grow or develop. So speaking of those patterns, the SQ ties to a cycle of development from 0 to 7 years old. So for a lot of us, we might not have a ton of memory, intellectual memory from this time, although I definitely know some people who can remember way back. However, during this period, your body remembers everything. Your body remembers if it felt unsafe. Your body remembers any rejection that you had from your parents or from your friends. And I don't mean like a massive get out of the house rejection, just these small things. When we're a new being on this planet and we have no armor and no defenses and no tools to be able to allow this energy in and back out of us, it gets stuck. So over this 0 to 7 year time frame, we develop a pattern inside of our physical body that we need to learn how to release. Now, the SQ is actually the third sphere of a series that works backwards from when we're 21 years old to this period of time, 0 to 7. So your IQ represents 14 to 21, and your EQ represents 7 to 14. So there's a reason that that profile goes in the order that it goes. And it's because this pattern, your IQ, which developed in the latest years, conceals this pattern that is your EQ. So your intellect turns on so that you don't feel an emotional charge that is too uncomfortable to feel. Now your SQ lies behind this pattern of your EQ. So we've got to, Richard Rudd, the founder of the Gene Keys, uses the language unpicking the weave of our wounding patterns. We've got to go in reverse. It's really difficult to access these things right out of the gate, although it's not impossible. So as our heart opens, what you will notice with the SQ in particular is a pattern of open, close, open, close, right? I'm sure we've all felt this. We all know what it feels like when our heart is closed down and the world feels tight and we feel constricted. And we know the feeling of love. It's so easy when we think about it with relational love, that feeling of being in love and new love and the openness that brings and the joy, and everything just seems a little bit brighter. Then that person does something that causes your heart to close, and we get upset. And we have all those feelings that I just described, and then they come and apologize and the heart opens again, and then somebody at work says something to you and it closes back down, and this is very normal. It's a part of being human, but our work is to figure out how I can keep this bad boy open as often as is possible. And what that entails is working with our own wounding patterns. Because when we get triggered, we snap into this closed heart if we don't recognize the pattern. And that's the key, is I've got to be able to see the shadow in my life in real time. So there's a process here to seeing the shadow. First, we are just unaware, almost blissfully unaware, until somebody says, hey, you're being an idiot, get it together. Then we become aware of the pattern, right? We get over this denial and we see, oh, people are right. This is a part of my character. It's not everyone else's fault. And we start to begin to tune into it. And then what happens is we have one of these triggering moments, and the behavior, even though we're aware of the pattern, the behavior continues. And it's because this 0 to 7 year time frame is lodged so deeply in our being. It's a pattern that almost feels like it's part of you. And that can be why it's so hard to let go of some of these patterns, because you're letting go of everything that you've known about yourself. But that's what's being asked of you. And then after, at a certain point, what you will notice after the behavior continues is you will, during the behavior, you'll notice that you're in it, but not stop. So this is the next step. I'm aware, right? Other people told me about it and I believe them. Then I'm so aware that the pattern is acting itself out and I'm able to see it, I'm watching it. However, I'm not able to change the behavior. It's a very difficult time in the process. It can be incredibly frustrating, and what's required is a lot of self-love and a lot of patience with yourself through that process. And then the final step, which I ran out of room for, is we see the pattern in real time and we're able to alter our behavior in real time. Meaning I can catch the pattern and I can subjugate my lower nature to my higher nature. In other words, I can choose love, or I can return non-love with love. That is the goal of the SQ. It helps us to see with eyes of lucidity. Let me tell you what I mean by that. So when somebody is speaking, there are the words that they are saying, and then there's the frequency behind the words. When the SQ begins to open, you are able to tune in on a deep level to the frequency behind the words. And when you do that, you can feel the wounding that happened to somebody else during their developmental years. And you hear, even if someone is screaming at you as loud as they can, you hear that as a call for love. They're hurting. And they need support. They don't need you to shut down, to close your heart, to get angry, to yell. And nothing about this feels fair. That's important. This isn't about fair. This is about you walking your soul's path and journey. And if you've made it this far, you have a responsibility to yourself to respond in a way that is in line with your soul. It doesn't matter what the other person is up to. It matters that you grow and you evolve. And so being able to see with eyes of lucidity, it brings me back to what Christ said. Those with eyes to see, let them see. Those with ears to hear, let them hear. It's like you put on a filter for love and a filter for truth. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place to be. This opening comes as a flood. I mentioned that on the last video. The SQ is an energy that just brings awe. And it brings tears to my eyes almost every day, just in the beauty of the world and the beauty of life. It also brings a sense of innocence, which I can never spell right. Innocence, a return to that childlike time, that 0 to 7 year time frame. We start to recognize the mythic nature of our life. We start to recognize and see that everything that has happened like a movie. It's happened like a plot. Like I needed to do this so that I learned this lesson, and this person needed to do that so that I understood this. And when we start to have that mythic nature, we're able to disconnect, put some distance between ourselves and our life situation, to use Eckhart Tolle's language. And that distance makes us a little less reactive. And now I don't mean with distance, I don't mean a separation. I don't mean a withdrawal, pulling ourselves out, just the opposite. We go fully and completely into the story. We live our own myth. We become our own hero or heroine. And when you do that, this sense of innocence comes back over you because you kind of have this like, well, fuck it attitude. Because you see the story and you see that you're just here playing your part. And then you get to step into that role. And you begin to realize that, I'm not Jason Cohen. I'm not a guy on YouTube or a Marine. I am, I'll leave it to you to really get to a place where you know what you really and truly are. And then life gets so fun because we can just play with joy and peace and with equanimity. One thing that's interesting to know is that the lines of the SQ. So when you look at your SQ, you'll see a gene key, which will be 1 to 64, and then you'll see a decimal point, and then a line 1 to 6. So you might see, like mine, for example, 35.5 is my gene key there. And so the line here for the 5th line is mentorship. And so the lines of your SQ actually tell you what you needed from that time of 0 to 7 years old. And from my work with people in the gene keys, what I've found is that thing is almost across the board exactly what that person did not get. Now, don't be mad at your parents. It's part of the plan. It's part of why you're here. It's part of your dharma and your incarnation. But as you look at the lines, and if you're not sure what they are, I've got a video that talks about them. The keynote there is what you needed. And it's what you need now to give to yourself. Because you are your parent now. You are responsible for parenting yourself. It's okay that you didn't get it then. Give it to yourself now. Self-hugs. They're underrated. Okay, I think that's all I have on SQ for today. Thank you for being here. I just launched a group and call it the Synarchy. I do weekly calls in there. It's a place to connect. I have so many resources. So all my YouTube videos I organized into different sequences and lines and spheres, etc. I've got different teachings around like alchemy and Ho'oponopono, which I can never say, but for the initiated, you know what I'm talking about. So I'll put the link to that in the description. And if you feel called, I'd love to see you in there. We've got a call on Thursday. Okay, thanks guys. Till next time.